Hey everybody, it's me, Brother Wild Bill, coming to you from inside the most dangerous prison in the Western Hemisphere. I was a hitman in the street from 2006 until 2010 when I was arrested as a cartel associate and given a 46-year sentence for quintuple homicide. I've been in prison for 13 years, and I'm the prison's recognized chaplain. You can pull the description box down and check out the Wikipedia link there. This isn't a cosplay. This is who I really am. I'm in my cell right now recording about the rape and execution of Hugo Spadafora. We're talking about the rise and fall of General Manuel Antonio Noriega. This is episode number 3. If you're listening to this, that means that there's 3 episodes out. There's 5 episodes out now. This is the 3rd one. You can go back and listen to the first 2, or you can continue on after this and listen to the last 2. So if you can follow, I'm pretty proud of this series. It's pretty exclusive. There probably isn't anybody else on the earth more qualified to talk about these things than I am. So today we're talking about the rape and execution of Hugo Spadafora. I'm not a fan of Hugo Spadafora, and it's not good to talk bad of the dead, but I want to explain why. I know that I could be influenced by the friendship that I held with my good friend, my dear friend, Manuel Antonio Noriega, General Noriega, who was my Uncle Tony, as he asked to be called. And we'll talk about that in the 5th episode. We'll talk about my relationship, my friendship with, and the help that I provided for General Noriega in the last episode, number 5. The Spadafora family is a family of Italian immigrants, and there's several Spadaforas. A lady Spadafora I see that's on TV all the time, a doctor lady who's a specialist. There's also a Spadafora that's in the National Assembly. During the 1940s, after the Second World War, there were a lot of war criminals that escaped to Latin America to escape the persecution and the war crime trials, and they carried away a great wealth. They carried away the wealth of their host of their home nations, Germany and Italy, and Hugo was a spoiled son of just such a man, just such an immigrant who was a wartime immigrant here to Panama. Hugo had access to the best schools, and he grew up as an Italian in Panama. His family was heavily dealt in cattle, dealt in mining, and had a lot of connections with land. Omar Torrijos, as we talked about in the first episode, dictator Omar Torrijos, reallocated a big swath of jungle that belonged to Hugo's father. They allocated it and gave it to the poor people. It was really unusable land, but the Spadaforas were forever set as enemies with the PRD, the PRD, Partido Revolucionario Democrático, which is the Omar Torrijos' is political party. It's actually the political party that's in control of Panama right now. Omar Torrijos, the General Omar Torrijos, who was killed in 1981 by Noriega and the CIA, his illegitimate son is the president of Panama right now. All through the 1970s, the Spadaforas were a thorn in the side of Torrijos, and then in the 1980s they were a thorn in the side of Noriega. They were angry about the reallocation of thousands of hectares, 2,000 or 3,000 acres of land that the Spadaforas had bought, for pennies on the acre, and were just holding it for later because of the mineral reserves that were under the ground. Torrijos reallocated that, and as when Noriega assumed power, he assumed power through the same political machine that Torrijos had created. So he inherited the Spadaforas as enemies. But Noriega was a peaceful man, really, a different kind of leader, and he invited a young Hugo Spadafora in the early 1980s to the discussion table and said, "Hey, let's be friends. What would you like to be in control of?" And Spadafora said, "No, we're proponents of democracy, and Noriega said, "Well, we're in Panama, and democracy doesn't work. Every time we have a democracy, things collapse. And so this is a dictatorship. I'm the dictator, but I want to put you guys in power. I want you guys on my side. Tell me what I can do." And Spadafora would have none of it. He was a spoiled brat, and he wanted it his way. a lot of people champion Spadafora as this champion of democracy. I see him as a spoiled child. Noriega was trying to do his best. He said, well, he was trying to placate him, and he couldn't be placated. And so it came to the point that they were agitating so much that Noriega banished Hugo Spadafora outside of Panama and told him, do not return or I will kill you. Don't return. And so he went to the United States and cried and cried and cried in the United States. He went to Costa Rica and cried in Costa Rica. And then in September of 1985, he decided, to hell with it, I'm returning to Panama come hell or high water. And so he crossed the Chiriquí border on the 12th of September, which is actually my birthday, believe it or not, in 1985. He was apprehended soon after by Noriega's people. Now, this is really interesting and really important. For world history, what I'm about to tell right now is extremely important. Noriega was in Sweden or Switzerland, I can't remember which, Sweden or Switzerland, one or the other, and he was having a treatment on his face. He had a pockmarked face because of terrible acne when he was growing up, and he was really, really, self-conscious about it. And he being now in the limelight, now he'd taken control of the Republic of Panama as a military dictator, and he being in the limelight, being required to be on television all the time, etc., going to, United Nations functions, etc., he wanted to do something about that pockmarked face instead of just accepting it. And he was there getting a spa treatment. They were working on his face, trying to get him all straightened out, get his complexion straightened out. And his people, who were basically thugs, called him on the phone. And the phone conversation went like this: we have Hugo Spadafora here. What should we do with Hugo Spadafora? And Noriega resignedly said, when you have a dog that has rabies, what do you do with it? And the other guy, the head of the secret police said, gotcha, boss. Okay, we understand. And hung up. Now, Noriega expected them to kill Hugo Spadafora and bury him quietly. This is not what they did, and it actually was not something that Noriega ordered. Noriega never ordered he ordered the execution of Hugo Spadafora, but he never ordered the torture of him. What they did, and this is terrible, and you can look this up online, you can actually read about it. It's interesting. A lot of you like this sort of thing, and the true crime community like this sort of thing. They brought in un chombon. What is un chombon? Un chombon is a great, and this is a Panamanian thing, okay? It's an enormous black man that raped men. That's what a chombon arrecho. They brought in a chombon arrecho and had Hugo Spadafora repeatedly ass raped. They actually cut his Achilles tendons so he couldn't try to get away, so he couldn't resist. His Achilles tendons were cut. He was raped until his anus was ruptured. I mean, not just like a little bit. He was like super fucked. And then they sawed his head off while he was alive. The bleeding confirms that he was alive when they sawed his head off. So we don't know how long Hugo Spadafora was tortured on the 13th of September, 1985, but it was just a horrid thing. So what did they do? Had they buried that body, we would never know about it, and it would have never happened. But what they did was they buried the head somewhere. Nobody knows where the head of Hugo, to this day, nobody knows where the head of Hugo Spadafora is. But they took the body and dumped the body across the border in Costa Rica. That's like the fucking stupidest thing that these guys could have possibly done. The Costa Rica is super allied with the United States, and Noriega now has, because of a series of events, Noriega is starting to have problems with the United States, and we'll talk about that in the next episode, about what those problems are, dealing with drug cartels and Pablo Escobar. And so the Costa Ricans find this body, call the Americans, they identify the body as Hugo Spadafora, and the enemies of Noriega in the United States begin beating a drum, calling for the invasion of Panama to oust Noriega as dictator. That would happen, but 5 years later, a little over 5 years later, that would happen. But many things had to occur in between. But this was the first big international thing that happened. Noriega returned from Europe, livid. Like, what the fuck? You did what? What did you do to this man? Why did you do that? I mean, what the hell would you make? Why? And so, and but the damage was done. It looked like back in those days that Noriega had ordered that, which he never would have. He wanted it quietly disposed of. He wanted Hugo Spadafora quietly disposed of, but that's not what the boys did. The boys trying to prove their loyalty, or I don't know what they were trying to do actually. Just because they are Panamanians, and that's how Panamanians are. They love raping and killing and so on and so forth. They raped poor Hugo and sawed his head off, things that he didn't deserve. No matter what your opinion of Hugo Spadafora, he certainly didn't deserve that. And so, if you're enjoying these episodes, this is episode number 3. This is the turning point in Noriega's dictatorship. The first 4 years of Noriega's dictatorship went fairly well. This was the turning point. This is when everything started to fall apart. In the next episode, we're beginning talking about the fall and capture of General Noriega and why. Why did the United States turn against Noriega? Many factors, not just things about Noriega, many political factors as well, are all mixed up in a big pot on that issue. If you're enjoying these, subscribe. Do it now. Subscribe, and comment. Tell us that you enjoyed it. Tell us if you're learning anything. And you can pull the description box down and find a way to contact me directly, Brother Wild Bill, in prison. There's my Instagram and my Facebook's there. And also a link to a book I wrote called Long Live the King Wild Bill. Long Live the King Wild Bill is a memoir about my first year in prison as a first world American adjusting to third world prison and the worst prison in Central America. So catch us next time. There's 2 more episodes and 2 before this. This is a series. It's all out now. You can hear about it. The Rise and Fall of General Manuel Antonio Noriega, my Uncle Tony.